And welcome to Liberty Under Attack Radio, your home for anarchism in action. I'm your host, Shane, coming to you from the communist state of Illinois. I hope you're all doing well and that you're looking forward to the holiday season, whether it's for religious reasons, spending time with family, or just, good old-fashioned time off of work in the state of servile society, or otherwise. I always look forward to the latter two, but the week before any holiday is usually, honestly, a shit show. This is being recorded on December 18th, by the way. So to give you an idea, I'll be recording a podcast every single night this week, but I'm not complaining. I'll get to end my 2017 with three of my all-time favorite guests, Jamin Biconik, Reagan Keeley, and Ben Stone, the Bad Quaker. So since I've snagged these three terrific folks in the year, you already know there's a reason. This short mini-series will be titled Building the Second Realm. For those new to the concept, the Second Realm can be defined as an updated version of temporary autonomous zones, TAZs. Essentially, the ability to conduct trade and other activities, including vices, in certain areas at particular times without reprisal from the state. TAZs were originally conceived of as geographically mobile, like Vonu shelters, yet now it may include cyberspace, such as the Deep Web. In other words, and this is me adding on to it, recognizing the state and their first realm infrastructure will exist as long as human beings do. And in the meantime, building our own infrastructure, societies, and cultures despite its existence and its coercion. Other than building the new society within the shell of the old, building the new society completely outside of it, and again, despite its existence. Overall, I'm pretty positive with the direction of both this podcast and the Vonu podcast, as well as the progress towards the Second Realm. I get anxious at times. I've talked about that in previous podcasts, but I've got to remind myself to be patient. A lot of work is being done behind the scenes, and the blockchain and other open source decentralized tech is here. All of that said, I'd like to end 2017, begin 2018 with a refocusing on strategy, or in other words, action. And there's no better set of guests to do so with. I honestly can't think of anybody better. So today I welcome back Jamin Biconik, a crypto anarchist, hardware hacker, permaculture farmer, and as we'll find out in depth tonight, a Vonuan. If you haven't caught my episodes with him before, please check out LUA Podcast number 46, titled Hardware Hacking, and LUA Podcast number 59, titled Crypto Anarchism, and Permaculture, The Path to Freedom. And as always, I'll link both of those in the show notes. So, Jamin, welcome back to Liberty Under Attack, sir. How are things going?
All right, Shane. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be on the cast again.
Right on, right on. So how are the projects going, man? I've seen you've been selling a lot of ghost pads on fascist books. So how's everything going?
Yeah, I've been struggling to keep up with demand as far as building systems go.
It's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's much better than having too much stock and not having anybody to take it off your hands. But so I've also started to do some researching and accumulation of parts for some XMR mining rigs. So I'm adding that to some of the systems I'll be offering. There's various plans for that. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but like anywhere from a single card that could be added to a ghost pad as an external graphics processor for mining, to multi-card units that are either run off ghost pads or more traditional ATX motherboards. Of course, the ones that would be ghost pad based would have the extra benefit of being firmware hardened, and it's something that really isn't on the market right now. It's like if you want to mine, you're pretty much stuck with your standard hardware, and as we know, everything is backdoored with the management engine. So right. It's probably just a matter of time before someone gets pwned.
Yeah, no, I would think sometime in the very near future. But that's really incredible to hear. I mean, I just got back into I had to get rid of a lot of my portfolio, my cryptocurrency portfolio for financial reasons earlier this year, which is certainly unfortunate. I would have made quite a bit of money, but I'm getting back into it, and this time the over Bitcoin even I'm holding Monero. Like that's the one I'm going to buy the most of initially. I see a lot of potential for it. And plus, it's one of those, the fungibility aspect of it, something I just kind of learned about a few days ago. and also too just the anonymous transactions using the ring signatures and such. So so to hear that you're working on a mining thing, or I guess a mining rig for it off of the Ghost Pad. I mean, I've been meaning to buy one anyways, but that's going to once you get that done, it's a guarantee. I've been meaning to get into mining anyways, and if it's as easy, I mean, I know you're kind of in the early stages now, but so like with like say it's one of like an external GPU drive that you could just plug into the Ghost Pad to do the mining. Would you kind of lay it all out and get it ready to go, and then it'd be really easy for like me to get one and just start mining, or kind of could you speak to that if you have any ideas so far?
Oh, sure. The way I would do it as of right now with the research I've done and the way I'm going to do my first prototype. Well, first of all, I have a single card riser that hooks to a it's called an express card slot, like higher quality laptops like the ThinkPads have them for expansion. And that enables me to hook at least one desktop GPU to the system, and the software and operating system would be a bootable USB stick like Tails. So you would basically get the card and the riser and all the other stuff with it, and plug it into the Ghost Pad and boot it off that drive, and it would be like an instant mining box.
Wow.
And that is, and that's also like the hardware wise, that is the same type of hardware to add a GPU for, other uses, including even gaming to a Ghost Pad. But primarily for like crypto mining and cryptography cracking, you can make a decent hashcat system without, like a mobile hashcat system without spending a whole lot of money.
All right, well, right on. Yeah, so I guess yeah, I'm deeply interested in this. I love Monero, and I'm looking to get into mining. So I guess, do you have any ideas so far? What I guess what the cost of this setup will be?
Well, the single card unit is probably going to be around $600. Is it like an addition? And it's going to be limited to the hash rate of a single card, but a decent GPU can do, have a hash rate like multiple times of what your typical desktop computer would have. But that's kind of like, that's not really even the focus, is the single card units. There is a way that I can actually chain, 3 to 6 or so cards to the Ghost Pad units and make they would basically be stackable cubed open air mining boxes. Like, you wouldn't be able to easily separate the Ghost Pad from them at one point. It would be all one thing, with each of them having an LCD and a keyboard that you could operate them with.
Huh. Interesting. So I did see on Fascist Book that you kind of just started. You're kind of testing around with that with kind of that mining rig now. I mean, I know you're working on a lot of projects. I know I ask you this every single time, and I know it's probably not a hard question to answer, but you get me hyped for a lot of stuff, man. So I guess any idea when you'll be able to put these things to market?
I'm not really sure about to market, but I already have someone that wants me to build them a larger scale one, and I'm really going to go more traditional with it, with more commodity parts for this one. But I'm gaining all this experience in building it, and that'll just make my other ones come on a lot quicker. But right now, my whole thing is, as soon as I need to catch up to orders, and I have most of the hardware now for a 3 GPU system, and that's what the stackable cubes will likely contain, is 3 GPUs.
All right, awesome. I'm certainly looking forward to that, and I mean, I always look forward to all of your projects because they're so relevant, in pursuit of personal freedom, and also, building the second realm. So I think it's again, as I say all the time, I think it's fantastic. So I guess let's kind of move on a little bit here. So we've knocked out those 2 episodes that we had planned first, and now there's only one left on the docket, and it's was something you brought up actually. The fact that you've been a Vonuan your entire life, you just didn't really have the word to describe it until you learned about Rayo and Vonu. And we'll certainly dive into that deeply, but I'd like to start with this question. As you reflect back upon the last year, are you optimistic, pessimistic, or otherwise regarding the advancement of personal freedom, the second realm, and/or Vonu?
I'm optimistic. Crypto's doing really well. It's enabling a lot of people to, have some capital to invest into the second realm, which is awesome. People that wouldn't have normally had, anything to invest. So that's cool. But the proliferation of encryption keeps getting better and better. More people are using PGP. More people are using stuff like Signal. Is my business being probably 50% newer users that want to, harden their digital persona a little bit, and maybe 50% like experienced, people from like the hacker space with these ghost pads.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool to be seeing like people willing to dive into open source. The way this is, I get probably as many orders to put like the simplified Neuron operating system on as I do, like more hardcore security distributions or something. So that's a testament right there.
Sure.
To, yeah, I mean, more people are using VPNs. So, I mean, there's a lot of, in the digital space, there's a lot of good things going on. A lot of those, of course, the big leaks that WikiLeaks released of the like the Vault 7 and what Vault 8, like the hacker tools and everything like that, and just kind of verifying what people like myself have been saying since, the early 2000s.
Right.
So, a lot of people, it's pretty cool that you're going to have Ben on because, Ben would tell you at length that, that is, it's the market trying to, squeeze its grip that's making, everybody fall through the cracks. Or the state trying to squeeze its grip is creating the market for the increase in encryption technology and,
Sure.
all the different countermeasures that are market reactions to the, state interference.
Sure, sure, and yeah, I certainly agree with you on that. I certainly do. Even just more people getting involved in cryptocurrencies. Hell, my roommate got involved a couple weeks ago, and he's doing very, very well. No, I guess the only thing, more generally, it's great people getting into, encryption, and new people are buying your systems now. I guess, and this isn't really this really isn't, I guess our job as Vonuans. Obviously, it's something that I do with this podcast, but. I guess the next step is to kind of eliminate that controlled schizophrenia, as Rayo talked about, and get them to apply that sort of that sort of a reaction to the state, or I guess a position on like privacy, expand that to, I guess, their entire lives. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes, in the future. And obviously with Vonu, I don't think it's going to be, widely adopted. I really don't. But at the same time, I do definitely see the plausibility of, a Vonu association or kind of this second realm, which is kind of what this mini series is going to be about. So I guess just kind of a follow-up question there. Are there any strategic aspects, that you're currently seeing, reflecting back on the past year that you'd like to see improved, whether minimally or drastically? Are there strategies that people are pursuing that you just think they're doing a bad job at, or you think they should maybe switch their focus or something along those lines?
I'm a big believer of trying to rescue yourself first, as far as liberty goes, and activism and everything else. And there's a lot of disconnection between action and talk that goes on, and as long as everybody, the biggest thing for people is to just like take daily steps to make your life match your talk a little bit better. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of strategies that I think are ridiculous that I wouldn't participate in, that I see a lot of people doing to try to advance the same goals that I have. But it's not even worth it to critique them in a way, because as long as you let them go, they have that network effect anyway. and there can be a net positive on the entire so open source insurgencies work. They create this network effect that creates, you get enough of it and you have these emergent properties and emergent qualities that come out, and you have all these people with different end points and different means, but they're using the same tactics and techniques, and they're all having the same net effect on the system. So I don't know. I think people just need to keep on with what they're doing, and just do the Socratic reasoning in their own heads, whether or not it's effective.
Right. No, I certainly agree, and Rayo did talk about that back in back in the '60s, that and this is more relegated to Vonuans, but the actions of Vonuans do benefit the society at large. If there's less money for the state, if there's less extortion money for the state to work with to fund wars and their bludgies and all of that, it does kind of cause a net benefit for society. Pursuing your rational self-interest. So I think it's certainly related there with more of the tech space too. Regardless of what the ends are, if it's kind of a communist utopia, if they're still using these encryption technologies, it still benefits people too, right? It still benefits kind of the society at large. So I think you are correct there. As I said before, I think people need to pursue the rational self-interest, and in so doing, they can also help society at large too, if that is their goal. If it's more of a collective movementist thing, or if it's more of a everyone has to be free, or I'm not going to be free. They can still kind of help out other people if that's kind of their goal. So I guess any other thoughts there? Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, so Jamin, I'm not quite sure where to start here, so I'll ask you. In regards to your path to Vonuism, would it be best to start, really on, say, when you were in your teens, maybe when you started to get interested in politics, if that even happened, or et cetera? So, I mean, you know your life better than I do, so where do you think is a good place to start here?
Probably as a younger child.
Awesome, go for it.
I had a really cool grandpa who was he was a chemical engineer, and he was an ex-army officer, and he was just a really smart guy. He, homesteader. He used to live, self-sufficiently for the most part when, my mom and her siblings were growing up. And I had a lot of interaction with him when I was young, and he just, saw me as a sponge for information, and he'd sit and read encyclopedias to me and stuff, and was just amazed with my, I would just be able to carry on conversations about what he was reading, and he was very much what you would call maybe like a paleocon,
Okay.
or, old right style, they very much for personal freedom, but very, very religious, and there's a lot of cogdis that goes along with a lot of their line of thinking, but, he was very much into self-ownership and property rights. So he was a, bit of an activist. He would, he'd, write representatives and write newspaper articles about rights infringements, stuff like, that your basic things of the day of like the 80s and basically the 80s, like, gun control, like mandatory seat belts, stuff that it encroaches on individual liberty. And he just, made some very good arguments. And I took those arguments into state schooling, and nobody was ever able to logically refute them with, what they were trying to teach me there. So that's kind of my beginnings. It's, I got into, as a teenager, like the only other people that you heard with rhetoric like that were the militia people.
Sure.
So I got involved with them. I realized the local people that I was involved with was just as much a front for the local clan and the what are they called, the Christian identity people. just
Okay.
completely,
Yeah.
completely nut jobs. But so that was good training for me though to be able to not get sucked into somebody else's little be a henchman for some other CIA or FBI run group, which basically, if you do enough research on that generation of like Posse Comitatus and all that, they were being run by the FBI. So I mean,
Right.
but anyway, so
Right.
yeah, I
So
got
so
into
so I
that.
guess just one question here, or I guess one kind of point. So you went into government indoctrination, into the public indoctrination camps with some ammunition and also some kind of some mental defense, which I think a lot of people don't have. I know I didn't have it. So I guess that certainly I would say that probably impacted I guess your path along to a Vonu. What do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was you know I went through a really rough time in like my seventh grade year, and I just basically decided that school was retarded and I wasn't going to put any put forth any effort. And they actually made me repeat that year as punishment
Really?
for just like, oh yeah, man, I would just completely shut off. I'd spin around in my chair and like, la 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 la. I'm not doing what you guys say at all. Here, I'll
Did they
bring
did
some
they
role
did they
playing
try to
game book.
shove some did they try to shove legal methamphetamines down your throat? Or is that
This was
before that time?
this was right before that. This was
Ooh.
right before, I'm like, 3 or 4 years. If I was 3 or 4 years old or younger, then yeah, they would have tried to hop me up on goofballs. But um, I doubt that my parents would have been cooperative because they were pretty skeptical of everything. But they were totally coming from a Christian fundamentalist, the state is the beast type, perspective.
Okay. So they viewed the state as the state as, so I guess one of my former co-hosts used to be a Christian anarchist. And if I remember correctly, this has been a while ago, but I guess kind of the viewpoint of Christian anarchism to him was that I guess that kind of the state is the devil, the state is Satan. And then there's also kind of an alternative view, not for Christian anarchism, that the state is the punishment for our sins or something along those lines. So I guess I'm just kind of curious as to
Well, it
what.
wasn't, it wasn't that philosophically cut and dry. It wasn't really just the state. It was who is in control of the government now, but government's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's the standard Pat Robertson, you know.
Okay, so it's more a kind of conservative aspect then. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, very good.
But I got to experience a kind of counterculture because they were in a Christian rock band that toured a little bit. So, I got exposed to that type of thing, backstage at concerts and stuff like that, and running sound and lights and just being around musicians all the time. I got guitar lessons from everybody, so, that type of thing. So, I don't know. When I kind of woke up from the forced indoctrination of the religious part, I just kind of, it wasn't that much different than, I don't know how to describe, kind of lost on a tangent here.
No, it's still kind of going on your path. So you kind of woke up from I guess the religious aspect, and I guess did that kind of once you kind of, and that's kind of how it was for me once I gave up kind of religion and kind of saw through the facade, at least for me, that kind of expanded into a bunch of different realms too. So is that kind of what happened to you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, um, but maybe like the only legitimacy of of rulers and everything like that. That kind of was all, growing up. It was all like, that's sanctified by God, who's in control now and everything like that. And after after those fallacies were saw through, it was pretty easy to see through the same argument, just with the people substituted for God.
Sure.
So I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Gotcha. So you had that that grandpa who kind of gave you some really good, I guess, some property rights arguments and things, and you went through school with kind of that mental defense. You kind of gave up religion and kind of started to, I guess, expand that out maybe a little bit. I guess what was the next kind of important point in your journey to pursuing Vonuans?
I would say in parallel to everything, I got pretty big into psychedelics as a self-exploration tool, and that's probably how I was able to work through a lot of the cognitive dissonance that I had at the time. Is I could I'd have these questions and I couldn't when you're under the influence of a psychedelic, sometimes it makes you deal with a hard question or makes you deal with hard cognitive dissonance, and come out, and see it in a, less ego-wrapped light, let's say. And, once you start down that path with everything, you start examining everything, and you find out that most of the culture is just a pile of control schemes. I mean, similar to religion. I basically didn't want to participate in any of those control schemes. So my whole my whole ambition, lifetime wise, has been to try to stay out of that as much as possible. Like try to do my own thing and not be bothered.
Try to limit your vulnerability to coercion.
Exactly.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I've had. I don't know. I've heard some good things about that, and I know a lot of anarchists, do kind of the psychedelics thing, and it's been very very helpful for them, whether it's kind of for mental development or for depression and things like that. So, not surprised to hear that it helped you in your journey as well. So I guess what age were you when you first started to try to stay out of those control schemes, or I guess in other words, limit your vulnerability to coercion? I mean, how old were you?
Probably like 15.
Damn.
So my whole life, my life plans and everything has always been centered around, how can I, even counter economics. I was thinking about counter economics principles back then too. If I'm not giving my labor to this, into this system, and I'm putting it in this other system, that I'm not only denying it my labor, but I'm working against it actively. And that's like kind of reading and listening to the Vonu stuff, and of course the agorism. Reading Conklin and everything talks. That's really hit home with me, because that's been a lot of my philosophy has been built on the counter economics arguments of the direct action stuff.
Yeah, starving the state. Starving the state. Yeah. So that's certainly interesting. So around 15 to 20 or thereabouts, was there a coherent philosophical backing, or was it more so this thing is this control system is evil. I'm going to avoid it and protect myself from it at all costs?
Well, it's like with most people, you have all these culturally conditioned safeguards to the official narrative if you don't buy it. So of course it's like, oh, the rich people are the problem, period. Corporations are the problem, period. Just no causal chain understanding of all of that. And I was a constitutionalist for the longest time, thinking that the Constitution just needed rewritten, it just needed fixed. We see the flaws now, we can go back and fix it, with completely not understanding Spooner's arguments and everything like that, which completely lag screwed the coffin shut on the Constitution for me. After reading Spooner, the coffin's burnt in the backyard now. It's like, so yeah. I spent a bit of time as more of a syndicalist, which I still think syndicalism as in a panarchy is an interesting idea, and I would like to be a part of that. But it's very my version of a futurist syndicalism would be more a distributed network of more agorist or second realm operators, than a traditional corporate business structure that's owned by the workers.
Right. Interesting.
But me reading a lot of good economics pretty much made me understand how that's very hard to do without having the groundwork already laid down by the industrial, it's I hate even saying the word capitalism, but the whatever you want to call the evolution of mercantilism that we live under now. You know
Fascism.
what I mean? Yeah. It's like fascism, but it's like American style fascism that has happy faces and
Right. American style fascism with with just a tinge of capitalism. Just this kind of facade of capitalism.
Yeah, I mean there's enough that the market forces can make semi-rational prices on stuff. That's it.
Sure, yeah.
And that's what a lot of you talk about, maybe you're talking about what mistakes I see people making, and a lot of them are like rhetorical mistakes and not making a brick wall between what is now and what a free market would be, and quit confusing the entities that are operating now in this totally not free market for anything like a free market entity. I mean, it's like the whole situation with the net neutrality stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's never a good idea to have the state, have a monopoly on your communication, but it's also never a good idea to let the state assign a monopoly on your communications to a cartel. I mean, those are the choices. We don't have a free market's going to do better and have competition. That's not a choice.
No.
If you understand how ISPs are run and how the actual physical infrastructure is owned, and you can't say that. I mean, that's not how it works. So while I am completely for taking away any control the state has, I am also completely against giving any control to these straw men, these hydra heads of the state with sock puppet hands on them of private enterprise.
Exactly. I mean, it's and this is kind of the major disconnect when it comes to I guess with kind of the the FCC and like say Comcast, is that folks on the left tend to think, well, Comcast is private, it's private, free market, this is what free market looks like. And no, that's you're talking about a corporate. Corporations are fiction created by the state, so you still have that they still have to abide by what the state says they have to. I put up a status on when that came out, and I said, don't worry, statists. The government will still regulate the hell out of the internet and internet providers. I mean, it's. I agree, and I had a conversation with a family member about this, and I got a chance to bring up mesh networking, so I was pretty happy to do that. But kind of lost my train of thought. But I guess either way you kind of lose. Either way you kind of lose.
Yeah.
And it's so that's why I got a chance to push mesh networking, because that won't really be a problem. if that were when that comes into fruition. It's not if, it's a when at this point, I think. Certainly,
sure, man.
Certainly a great point. And I'm not a fan of corporations either. I think a major mistake that anarcho-capitalists make is corporations are good, right? I think that's kind of a I understand at least a little bit. I guess I could understand in certain circumstances if people decide to have an LLC or something, but generally, I mean, corporations are, an entity of the state. Could they actually exist in a free market? Sure, but they would not be anything like what
Yeah,
they are today. So
yeah. When you're talking about what would exist under an actual freed market, excuse me, you're not talking about the same thing. You're it's a fallacy of definition. You're not using it's not the same thing at all. Like what exists today is a complete state creation. Historically, it's a state creation. I mean, it was made to basically um, put these wealthy businessmen off the hook for people who drowned in shipping accidents, like by the East India Company and all that. All that era. I mean, that's where the corporation came from. It made the ship. The actual ship was the corporation, and the ship was responsible for the ship. So the people that might have been responsible for poorly outfitting a ship and sending a bunch of people off to maybe die wouldn't have to pay the bill. It was the ship.
right, it was
The
subsidized
ship.
upon the backs of the
Yeah,
taxpayers or whatever it is. Yeah. So
yeah.
so
So
it's
I
it's
mean
it's social.
that's
It's so what America is. It's kind of hard to define. Some people call it an oligarchy and that, but I think it's just like a very intricate blend of fascism and socialism. Because even the folks on the right advocate for socialism, right? I mean, they advocate for corporations. But
sure.
what do corporations do? They limit the liability upon the taxpayers, right? They limit the liability of the business owner onto the backs of the taxpayers. Um, so yeah, I'm certainly right there with you, and that was interesting that in kind of that panarchia that you would want to give the cynicalism aspect a shot. I think that's certainly interesting, and not really something I've seen proposed as far as maybe I don't know, a blockchain run cynical society. Um, I don't know. I do think Mises was correct that the problem with socialism and communism is prices, but if it's
Exactly.
blockchain run, then I don't know, that could be an interesting experiment. I wouldn't be
Well,
against that.
well, when I say cynicalism, I mean just more for the organization of how your goods are produced and stuff, not necessarily as like some egalitarian thing. Um, more as you don't have a state created um, owner class. You have a network of owner operators.
Okay, so it's sounding more like a Vonu association or an agora
Yeah,
or an
yeah,
ethical
exactly,
enclave or something
exactly.
along those lines. Okay, interesting,
And
interesting.
see, that's what I always wanted syndicalism to be, and it wasn't that. That wasn't what I was looking for, and that's why I moved on.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So what's I guess what's the next step? What's the next step in your path to Vonuism?
I just need to keep on the paths I'm going, and I need to grow my business, and figure out what good products that will help people be able to unplug themselves and cover their tracks and keep themselves safe in the digital realm. More permaculture research. I want to get into more automation of this stuff. Basically, I'm also a strategy too for me is activist parenting. I'm raising three children, and they will be polymaths, and there's very little that can stop that. I mean, you have to stand in their way for that not to happen in the environment that they're growing up in. Um, I mean, they each have neuron computers. They've taught themselves a ridiculous amount of things on them. They're grammar sponges. I mean, I can sit and talk with even my younger daughter for an hour, and she completely soaks up everything I'm talking about and can carry on a conversation with an adult about it. So, I really think, what we're doing now is going to be paving the way for their generation.
Sure, sure. And
and
just
that,
to step in for a moment here, because I heard it was Brett Veinotte, and they did stop Brett Veinotte on his School Sucks Across America tour. He actually stopped at your farm, didn't he?
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
because so it had to have been one of your daughters, and it might have been the Tom Woods show or somewhere he was interviewed about it. He was like, I went to this farm, and this young girl was just walking around telling me what everything was, and I hadn't really had that experience, and it was really awesome to see this just young girl teaching me all about what was around her. So I'm guessing that was probably your daughter.
Yeah. She really knows what's up. She knows what she's doing, and she's constantly testing and refining her rhetoric. She's me if I would have had support when I was younger with, not trying to be made to fit into the mold.
Awesome. That's certainly fantastic to hear. So I guess, and this is something that Rayo talked about quite a bit. And Rayo did have a free mate. He had Roberta or Dr. Gatherer, or I don't remember the Halen Hygeia. She went by a few different pseudonyms, I guess. So they were a free mate couple. And they talked about families in some of the articles they wrote in some of the publications, but they didn't think it would be safe. Them living in a polyethylene A tent. They thought they could do it if they had another family there that they were, I guess, vonuing with. But he did kind of raise Rayo did kind of raise some of the concerns with having a family, having children, when pursuing vonuance, or pursuing an invulnerability to coercion, or becoming as invulnerable to coercion as you possibly can. So I guess, is it harder to Vonu? I guess actually, let me back up. How is life as a Vonuan with a family? Could you kind of speak to that? Does it make things more difficult? I guess, do you have to put forth extra precautions to keep them safe? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's definitely more difficult, and it's more difficult to have a family and be into individual freedom, for sure, because the state would like to raise your children for you, and given the opportunity, they would make that happen fairly easily and quickly. So we home educate, of course. So there's always the looming threat of some type of issue coming up, or someone not liking us, and even just a rumor reported to the wrong person of something, and it doesn't take much. So we're very cautious about stuff like that. It does limit the type of activity I do. The ghost pad thing in my business is as breaking bad as I get anymore. Stuff like that. I pretty much stay away from anything illicit. I'm totally gray market. Not really, just not willing to risk my kids to do any black market activity, like straight up black market stuff. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things I'd be doing a lot differently if it was just me and my wife, but it's all worth it. I mean, and I explain it all to my kids. I explain why we do and why we don't do things, and they, man, I hope you get a chance to talk to either Kaylee or Caitlin this next Liberty Fest, because they would blow your mind.
I hope so. I hope so. She I don't know which one it was, but I had my the Linux Tales, the Lisa Simpson thing sitting out. And apparently I put the legs on backwards, and she came and said, she pointed to it and said, "Can I?" I was like, "Yeah, do it. Yeah, go for it. Do what you want to." And she just flipped the legs around. And I was like, "Thanks, appreciate it." So yeah, I would love to have a conversation with them. Is that, I don't know, they'd probably be far ahead of a lot of adults that I know, as far as their knowledge. So
oh man,
yeah, that'd be incredible.
She
Hell,
owned,
maybe I should interview him on the podcast while I'm there at the fest.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, man. She owned an adult individual with a doctorate on the taxes go towards doing good things argument. It was awesome. It was like I heard of it through my wife because she witnessed it, but they were on they were taking a ferry on vacation, okay, and our friend said, isn't this great that our tax money went to pay for this ferry? And Kaylee's like, yeah, this is nice, but what about all those kids that get blown up by killer flying robots across the ocean or something like that?
Wow.
It was so proud.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. I hear even kind of, I guess, the less severe sort of things, like if a couple homeschools their children, and then whenever they get divorced, one of the parents, out of I guess, I don't know, revenge, says, well, I want to send them to public school. Like there's always, I guess, that kind of fear. Government schools is bad enough, but living as a Vonuan with a family, I can't even imagine, how that must be. And also too, I mean, and we've talked about this here on both the Vonu podcast and Liberty Under Attack. So-called private property, and quotes, right? I put that in quotes because there really is no such thing as private property, and Kyle, I guess, elaborated on that, and it's because of the fee simple system. So, that brings in a whole new realm of dangers too, with private property, because it's fee simple system. The state pretty much allows you to, so I guess, in quotes, own that property until they say you can't. So it's really, I don't know, man. I'm really impressed with what you're doing, and I guess, let me ask you this: was there any, I guess, drastic moments that, I guess drastic moments, or I guess light bulb moments, I guess, to be kind of cliche about it, that really told you that that the Vonu life was the way that you wanted to go?
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel like I was born that way, and how how many lots of people tried to knock it out of me, but it just didn't work. And as I examined premises that I took for granted, and just dropped the ones that don't hold up to logic, and keep keep myself busy doing that, and eliminating what's false. I'm a big believer, and there's that it's hard to tell truth from perspective, but you can at least eliminate the falsehoods.
Sure. Sure.
If that makes any sense for the question.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. So, I guess I'll go with I guess one more, two more conclusionary questions here. So, I guess, what advice would you give to someone just starting out with Vonu? I mean, is there anything easy they can begin doing now? I mean, with the stuff you've done over your life, when you look back on it, is there like you look back on it now and think, like, I could have done this and this at that time, and it would have been pretty easy. I would have made myself more invulnerable to coercion. Could you speak to that?
I think acquiring skill sets. That's really been one of my main things throughout my life, is trying to acquire as many skill sets and knowledge bases as I can, to be able to take back more autonomy, and to be able to do things for myself, even if even if it's just an option that I know I can fall back on. I think that's a big thing, is just have some useful skills that you can do. Be flexible. Learn how to learn anything. Like, really, sharpen up on the trivia. Like,
Yep.
Memorize those fallacies. Like, learn how to apply them. Track down good media and consume it, like, in mass quantities.
Right.
This show, Bad Quaker Archives, School Sucks, especially Brett's older series on intellectual self-defense and stuff like that. all those things will help you sharpen your rhetoric. And I find if you're articulate in talking to people, and especially in real life, you can explain things very well without using any of the buzzwords that make people shut off, like anarchy or, I frequently have neighbors that are very, ensnared in the servile society, so to speak. I have them going right on with, 99% of what I say. And, once in a while I'll let something slip, and then there'll be like this awkward silence. And they're like, well, you know what I mean? They've agreed with me up until then, but I let it slip what they're agreeing with. And it's like, oh, really?
Right.
But yeah. And,
And buying a
learn how
ghost
to
pad
be
too, right?
Oh yeah. Learn how to be the gray man if you have to too. I mean, like I've been the gray man. After I had kids is when I really started coming out into public space on the internet and everything. I'm a lurker. I've lurked in the shadows of the internet since the late 90s. Just never really putting my face to much or anything like that, or even my name to any real name.
Right.
Yeah, like another thing is, drop the contract phone. Even if it's a little bit more, get a semi-anonymous phone. Get a burner.
Oh man, I
You
wrote,
did
I
that
wrote, I
extra.
wrote, I wrote. Yeah,
Yeah,
I wrote an article on that probably about a year and a half ago, and I actually called, like the top 4 providers, and they don't really ask for any personally identifiable information. They just ask for like a zip code
oh
maybe or
sure,
something
man.
like that, and you get that burner phone, and you put Signal on it, and if you want to go really hardcore with it, like use one of those voice changes if you're talking to people. I mean, it's
Yeah,
certainly a very plausible route if you're going for privacy. That's really the only route so far that I've found for privacy on a government or cellular phone. I mean,
yeah, and I mean that's another project I have going too. Is I'll at least have instructions for what you can do with that. But I've never had a contract phone. I've been running burners since I've had a cell phone. I've never had my name hooked to a cell phone. You used to switch them out fairly often. Now with places like TrackPhone that'll let you bring your own phone, and you can just buy a prepaid SIM off of them. You can actually get a decent phone that you can root. You can at least root and get rid of most of the spy, the high level spyware. We could go on at length about how secure Android really is under the hood, but at least those high level trackers are gone. You can get rid of all the Facebook crap. You can install multiple.
Google Play Store.
Yeah. Or I mean, there's things you can do like you can install Google Play Store under a pseudonym using a prepaid credit card, which adds another layer of what the fuck to the mix of someone trying to figure
Right.
out who belongs to that device. And that's fairly easy to do. But for God's sakes, I mean, I've always seen these phones as a bundle of sensors. I've heard it termed before, that you carry around with you that are basically a surveillance state wet dream, so you might as well at least try to have some level of anonymity there. And if of course, if you're in an area where the U.S. or the U.S. empire doesn't have to use such a light hand, that's how they target people for drone strikes, is the GPS in their phones. So I mean, learn these things now. It gets back to I'm talking about security culture type things too here with the burner phones. So, tighten that up. Start using more encryption. I'm as guilty as anybody. It's so much easier just not to. But, there's a Signal desktop app now. I haven't used it yet, but friends that use it say it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, I've used the Signal desktop app. It's yeah, it works well. It works well.
So I mean, that's a really, really easy thing that everybody can do, is get on Signal. I mean, it's, like, it's another one of those things where, I could go on at length about issues with it on multiple levels, but it's, otherwise you're just yelling
So
across the road.
it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, you're just like yelling across the street, if you're not using some type of encryption. And it's that network effect again. The more people using it, the more processing time has to be paid for to crack it if they want to know what everybody's doing. So,
right, and in regards to Signal too, I came across this a year later, but apparently there was some sort of a U.S. government agency that tried to get information from Signal, and they don't store anything, so they couldn't give them anything. So I think that's a really that's certainly a positive thing there, and I think that's a great direction to go with open source. Like, we don't have anything on our servers, so fuck off.
yeah, we
but
don't.
very good. I guess. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't log at all. Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, and like just become more literate in this stuff, because the people that are fighting tooth and nail to bring everybody this technology, we don't have like these massive marketing machines, and we don't have a lot of R&D money compared to the servile society per se. So I mean, people just have to learn how to deal with that, and kind of step their game up a little bit. It's very easy to figure this stuff out, because there's so many how-tos on YouTube and everything. It's just a matter of not having that initial hesitation, the analysis paralysis that people get, of thinking, oh, this is something complicated, therefore hard, therefore I'm going to put it off until I absolutely have to do it, and never get around to doing it.
Exactly. Just sit down and do it.
Yeah.
I remember it was this would have been last year, and this was when I was not as experienced with cryptocurrency as I am now. But there's a tutorial that MWD put out for mining Bitcoin, BIP coin.
Oh yeah.
And I said, I'm gonna sit down and try this. There's some complicated stuff there, but I'm gonna sit down and do it. And within 2 hours, I was mining Bitcoin. So and didn't think I would ever be able to figure that out. So yes, when it comes to the subjects, that a lot of these things are daunting, and I'll admit to you, Jamin, I with mining Monero, I have everything I need, with my computer now, but I ran into a little bit of a tough spot, and not sure how to fix it. And I haven't done anything with it for like 6 months, so I'm sure it's not a hard fix to do. But I just it's I kind of have this. I think it's kind of the same mindset that a lot of other people have. The apprehension of getting into encryption or cryptocurrencies or whatever. It's going to be something major. Well, it probably isn't. It's probably something really small. You just need to go and spend an hour or so fixing it, and you'll probably be all right. Or with installing PGP and using it. It's actually not that hard to do, and there are tutorials for both Windows and Mac, courtesy of Kyle Reardon, my co-host on the Bonnie podcast. So yeah, I mean, kind of what you're getting back to with the Trivium and learning a bunch of skill sets and such. I mean, yeah, learn how to use encryption. It's better to be able to use it now when you don't necessarily need it than whenever you come into a situation where, oh shit, I need to use PGP right now and I need to set it up at this moment, right? So set these things up in advance before you need them, but I would still encourage you to use them anyways, because obviously privacy is important, and being as big of a pain in the ass of the state and the servile society in general as you can is it's always a great feeling. So I guess any other things that people can do when starting out, or I guess the final question I have for you this evening.
Well, I mean, I would say, I don't know, develop like a sense of thrift, because you will probably have to do more with less, just because of the nature of things. Like we struggled for quite a long time, trying to live philosophically consistent, and I've
been there.
I've turned down different jobs and stuff like that. So having like the virtue of thrift and understanding of how to get the most for your resources has really been the key to us having what we have now and being able to even like think about weathering the storm we're under now with my wife's health. I mean, it's
Right.
it's all about being able to defer gratification for quite a while, and that's the same thing with a lot of these technologies. Is you might have to sit down and defer gratification of being done configuring something, but after you've done it, you know how, and it's something that's not
It's a
easily.
great feeling.
Yeah, and it's something
It's a
that's
great feeling to learn how to do something. Yeah.
it's like not easily
And
taken
then you can
away.
teach others.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you mentioned two things there: frugality and kind of that guerrilla capitalist mindset that Adam Cash talked about in his book Guerrilla Capitalism, which you can get at libertyunderattack.com/guerrilla capitalism. So yeah, I think those are both terrific things. Frugality and kind of that entrepreneurial mindset certainly go hand in hand with Vonu, and can certainly help make you more invulnerable to coercion, especially if you come upon a hard time and if you're reliant upon a servile society job. Or I guess let's reverse that. If you have a servile society job and you come across a hard time like a layoff, and you don't have food storage and you don't have savings, you're going to be in a world of hurt, and you'll probably have to make yourself more vulnerable to coercion. Or some people have to, go on welfare and stuff, or disability and things of that nature. So I guess the idea is to put these things in action beforehand, so you don't have to, make that step, and so you can still make yourself more vulnerable to coercion rather than relying upon others. So I guess last question here, Jamin. I know you're doing a lot of really really incredible stuff, but I guess what is the ultimate goal of your Vonu lifestyle? I guess to elaborate, I know you have your semi off-grid camper. I mean, do you aspire to pursue van nomadism? Do you aspire to combine that with homesteading or permaculture farming, or is there some other, I guess, strategy that you and Karen are looking to pursue?
Yeah, we would like to start doing some permaculture design on the road, and maybe even complete systems design with a lot of the other stuff that I'm doing as far as the automation. So that's a possibility later on in life. Um, we like to go to the Liberty Fest, and we camp out at some other people that you would probably consider Vonuists places a couple times a year. And we have like a rotating group people that are starting to do that now. So and it's another layer of resiliency that we have. The camper that is very easy to put on the truck and go as like a bug out vehicle type thing. As far as my plans for Vonuance, I mean, it's just going to be continue doing the same, raising my kids, helping them, um, figure out what type of businesses they want to do in the counter economy or second realm. Um, but teaching and teaching and learning, that's what I like to do the best out of everything. Is I figuring out how more stuff works and how to break more things, and how to fix things after they're broken from my figuring them out and that type of stuff.
Very good, very good. So I guess any other closing thoughts for the listener, Jamin? I mean, in regards to the second realm to Vonu, or I guess things that you would recommend them do or consider.
No, not really. Nothing comes to
All
mind.
right, all right, very good, very good. Well, thanks so much, Jamin. And why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff? Where can people buy ghost pads? Where can they eventually buy those sweet Monero mining rigs? Where can they hopefully buy in the very near future those freedom boxes that you're also working on? Where can they buy the weather stations that you're working on? All of that stuff, in the near future. Where can they contact you, find your work?
Oh, and excuse me, and a quick update on the Freedom Box thing for anybody that's interested. I got a development board to evaluate, and I didn't like it and sent it back, and that kind of jammed me up a little bit, and I need to find the other one that I wanted, and nobody has it in stock. So that I'm just kind of jammed up there. But people can get a hold of me at jamin@semisynthetic.net with email. And of course, you can use PGP if you want. People can friend me on Facebook, and it's just Jamin Biconik. People can go to neuron.semisynthetic.net to check out my original Neuron page that's going to be replaced at some point soon. But there's ways to get a hold of me there. And as far as systems go, if you're interested in what I have to offer, I can give you a brief explanation, send you to an eBay link with a better description, and we can go from there. I only have first generation units on eBay because the second generation ones are basically have been all custom, and they are spoken for as soon as they're built, if not before they're built. So so yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Email, Facebook, or getting a hold of me through the Neuron page.
All right, very, very good. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Jamin. This will make a very good, introductory episode to the Building the Second Realm miniseries that we're doing. And again, thank you for your service, for all you're doing, to help build the Second Realm and provide that Second Realm infrastructure.
Oh, thanks for having me on again, man. It's really a pleasure.
All right, awesome. So as I told you guys in the introduction, I've got a lot on my plate this week, and we'll do my damnedest to get all these interviews out on Patreon before 2018. I think I can do it. I'll obviously release them on the normal podcast feed in the coming weeks, but if you're looking to help support us financially, please consider becoming a patron. One-time donations are honestly fantastic, but it's nice to have a set amount of money coming in each month. It's budgeting is easier. If I need to upgrade something, I know how long it'll take for me to get that money. But you can visit libertyunderattack.com/support-us for the link to Patreon, for our affiliate links such as VeerWalks, Virtual World Exchange. If you're looking to buy or sell Bitcoin without sending a DNA and blood sample into Coinbase, as well as a QR code and addresses for a bunch of cryptocurrencies. So keep a lookout for the next episode in this series with Reagan Keeley. We'll be discussing her recent trip to South America and the importance of looking internally and helping to create this second realm. Thanks, y'all. Have a great one. If you take a look at the world around you, the outlook for personal freedom can appear quite grim. The size and scope of government continues to increase, regardless of the endless promises by political rulers to rein it in. The government robs you of more and more of your income every single day, and there appears to be no end to their thievery in sight. The revelations by Edward Snowden and other leaks paint a picture of an omnipotent, all-seeing government. Privacy is definitely a thing of the past. With all of these obstacles and others to overcome, freedom may really seem dead. But it's not. Back in the 1960s, a freedom pioneer by the name of Rayo developed a strategy known as Vonu, which is premised around the invulnerability to coercion, whether public, government, or private criminals. It was largely forgotten until early 2017 when Shane and Kyle launched the Vonu podcast, a podcast discussing all things Vonu. If you're an individual looking for practical solutions in regaining your personal freedom, then the Vonu podcast is the podcast for you. Subjects discussed include the philosophy behind Vonu, survivalism, financial independence, crypto-anarchism,
country shopping, and much, much more. Find the website at vonupodcast.com. That is Victor, Oscar, November, Uniform, podcast.com. And make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcatcher. Again, that is vonupodcast.com. The outlook for personal freedom has never looked better.